Okay, hello, welcome to the Fitness Freedom Podcast. Maybe I should try my radio voice. Hello, welcome to the Fitness Freedom Podcast, where we're all about finding more joy, peace, and freedom with food, exercise, and your body. How did that sound? All right, I should just keep the original intro, shouldn't I? Today, I want to talk about this really helpful idea about how fear and anxiety come through in our relationships with food, with exercise, with our bodies, and how that looks, and then how it harms us, and then what the antidotes are. So, you know how in the presence of something like a chemical, another chemical has to, by necessity, be removed? That's what I'm going to be sharing with you. Like, by the presence of certain things that I'm going to be talking about, that anxiety and that fear has to go away. You can't have both at the same time, or it can't take up as much space. So, if you are, let me just preface this by saying, if you are an anxious person, welcome to the club. I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And for a lot of my life, I've dealt with anxiety, even if I didn't realize that's what it was called. And I've noticed some ways that manifests in my life and how I dealt with fitness and health was a huge part of that for a lot of years. And if you're someone who deals with anxiety, this will likely be extremely eye-opening and helpful for you. I want to be clear that no matter what object we might use in the formula of anxiety, the container and the formula stays relatively the same. So anxiety once anxiety is a fear of danger, right? And our bodies or our minds perceive something dangerous, and we get those signals from our brain and into our nervous system that alert us something is dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. And even if there's not really a threat, there might be, and there probably were times in your life where you had something threatening, but those signals are very sensitive and very alert, probably because you had to be to stay safe. And so that in that way, it's helpful, and your body is just trying to survive. But those signals can go off even when nothing is happening. And so I watched this show, this alien show. It's like called The Second Best Hospital in the Universe or something on Amazon Prime. And it was really intriguing. I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. And I know in a few minutes, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch that. I'm going to stay with it. And then I heard Natasha Lyonne's voice. And I realized Maya Rudolph was in it. And who knew that Andrew Dismuke has a really good cartoon animation voice, and then Kiki Palmer and Stephanie Sue. So I was like, okay, this is a cool show. And they talk about anxiety, and they're trying to find a cure for anxiety, and there's this little worm that goes in this alien's brain, and whenever she has an anxious thought, it feeds off her anxiety and makes her feel good. And because her that worm was eating her anxiety, even when there was actual threat, she wasn't able to fight against it because she just was like, everything's fine. It's all chill. And so we can see in that episode, in that scenario, how useful and helpful anxiety can be. Because if there is something dangerous, we want to protect ourselves against it. Same thing for like our thermoreceptors in our nerves. Like when something is hot, we don't touch it. If we didn't have those thermoreceptors, even though there's pain involved, we would keep our hands in the fire, and our fingers would burn off. So anxiety and fear is protective. Fear is protective. But we develop all of these mechanisms in our brain and our lives to protect against danger. And again, like I said, sometimes there's actual danger, sometimes there's not. But I've found that for a lot of us, something that we develop, I speak for myself and I speak for clients and for people I've worked with in eating disorder recovery specifically, which is a lot correlated with anxiety. We create rules. So our brain says, maybe because of a past experience or something we've heard from someone else or something we make up for ourselves, we make these rules. If such and such is X, then I will be safe. Or if X happens, then I will be safe. And it's kind of nice for our brains because we can't control everything that happens in our lives. But if we can come up with formulas for safety and we can make those rules happen and control certain factors, then we can feel safe. And eating disorders are complex. Having experienced one and worked with one and studied them, they are super complex. We don't have all the reasons for why they happen and why some people have them and some people don't. But food and exercise and body is a really, if you think about like a prime environment, if you think about nature, like certain plants grow really quickly and easily in certain environments. The realm of health and fitness, especially in our culture, is a prime environment for us to latch on rules, especially because food and exercise are visible things that we can control. Like we have numbers of calories for specific foods, we have macros, we have amounts and portion sizes, we have calories and reps we can count, we have distances we can count, we have weights we can count. And in and of themselves, they're just really simply numbers. They're just quantities. But if you have more of an anxious tendency and you feel like you're afraid of maybe gaining weight, you're afraid of being out of control, you're afraid of letting go of your body, or not having predictable outcomes, then this area of health and fitness becomes so easy to make rules for. And I know that's what I did. And if you're listening to this, maybe it's something that you have done or that you continue to do. And a lot of these rules are become bigger and bigger and bigger in our lives until they take control of our lives. In my case, within my eating disorder, I had so many rules and I had to keep them in order to feel safe. And I thought that I had control over them. I felt so like in control. I would never lose control. And I had rules for if I did lose control, rules for the rules, or rules for breaking the rules. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But in the end, the rules had control of me, and I actually was not in control at all. It felt very much like I was controlling things and avoiding pain and avoiding helplessness. But in the end, I was in more pain and I was more helpless because these rules took a hold of me. So if this sounds familiar to you, think about the rules we create for exercise. And I want you to be honest with yourself, and maybe you can identify. Usually these things are not spoken out loud. And if you have some shame around them, like you know that maybe something about them is not actually healthy, you might not share them with others. But think about rules you might have around time, like I need to work out a certain amount of minutes every day or a certain amount of minutes or hours every week, You could create rules for calories, like I need to burn a certain amount of calories in a day through exercise, or even steps can be a rule. And I know that we've lauded 10,000 steps as like the the pinnacle of health. And a lot of fitness trainers will say, make sure you get your 10K steps every day and you follow these rules. Or even doing specific exercises. You might have rules around doing specific exercises every day or every week. For you, it might be distance. I know for me, that was a rule that I kept, is like I had to run at least 3 miles every day. And I did that for years. That was a rule. Regardless of what the rule is, I want you to understand that it's not about the rule itself, it's about the mechanism of the rule. You are holding these rules in your mind as ways to keep you safe. And in that way, you can extend some compassion for yourself. And let's just make some space here to pause and just say, this likely came out of a fearful place because I didn't feel safe. I deserve to feel safe. And I can see how maybe this isn't the healthiest, most beneficial way to keep me safe. And I love myself. And food, maybe even easier to place rules on. Maybe you have rules around how many calories you can or can't eat, or when you can eat more calories, or when you can eat fewer calories. It could be around macros, like I have to get this many grams of protein every day, or I'm not going to let myself go over this many grams of fat or carbs in a day, or sugar or whatever. You might have rules around what foods are good and acceptable and what foods are off limits, like you can never eat them. And I just want you to understand again how this is all a way to try to keep you safe. If you eat bad foods, you might punish yourself and have a rule for how you punish yourself if you eat a bad food. Like maybe you will only eat your quote unquote good foods for a day or a week, or you won't eat, or you'll deprive yourself. And we have timing rules, like I can only eat between these hours. And you can see as I'm saying this, and I'm seeing it too as I say it out loud, how much these rules might overlap with fitness and diet culture advice. Like there are literally explicit rules that are given to us around how we should exercise and how we should eat. Like I said, like that, those 10K steps, or always getting this many ounces of water. And not to say that those aren't beneficial to us, but when we are using those rules as ways to keep us safe, we are actually in an unhealthy place, because those rules themselves will not make us safe. And we try to create these formulas of like, if you do this, then you will be guaranteed health. If you do this, then you will be guaranteed safety. But we also see examples in the world of people who are living healthy lives. They're not doing any of the quote unquote wrong things, and bam, they're hit with cancer. Or people who are in great shape and are active and eating generally healthy, bam, they die of a heart attack. Like that Brian Johnston guy, or whatever his name is. Sorry, I don't know his exact name, but the guy who spent millions of dollars trying to biohack realizes he has some strange, rare gut disease where his stomach is eating him alive. Don't quote me on that. I haven't looked up articles around that. So I haven't looked up the specific information, so don't quote me on that. But it comes up all the time where the rules are broken. And honestly, I love when the rules are broken. I think that's why queerness is so amazing, because it breaks the idea of heteronormativity and compet. There's always an exception to the rule. So if we live our lives based on rules, expecting to be safe, we might stay safe maybe you will eat healthy and take care of yourself and never get a disease in your life, or live the most long life and die a peaceful death exactly how you would like. But the thing is that there's so much that we cannot control, no matter how much we try. So the goal is not to just always live a quote unquote safe life by following the rules. It doesn't work that way. And again, like I gave you with my eating disorder history and with clients that I've worked with, you realize soon that it doesn't work that way, that you don't stay safe, that you're actually in a prison, that even though you're trying so hard to be healthy and do all the right things, you could become unhealthier and unhealthier mentally and thus physically, emotionally, and socially, because it takes away from your life. I've been seeing this personally in how I view relationships, specifically partnerships. And so I'm just going to be a little vulnerable here. Um, I have had a lot of scary things happen to me in close relationships with family, with partners, even with people I would consider friends, community in my life. And I've shared a lot about that in this podcast. And so I have created rules around relationships, around partners. If they do this, then I'm safe. If we do this, then we're safe. If I do this, then we're safe. But the thing is, it doesn't really work that way. The goal that we want is to be happy. We say, if I do this and they do this, then this will happen and I will be happy. If I exercise for 30 minutes a day, or let's just say, let's take this example. If I run for 30 minutes every day, I will be okay. And then I will be happy. I'll be safe and I'll be happy and I'll be all right. I'll be okay with myself. Or if I don't ever eat above 3,000 calories in a day, I will be safe and okay. And thus I will be happy. It just doesn't work. Your body isn't a machine. Your body isn't uh, a robot where you put things in, a vending machine where you put things in and get things out. And relationships and people aren't that either. So I've become more aware of the unspoken rules I have around relationships, where if this happens, then we're safe and I could be happy. Or even around money, if I have this amount of money, then I will be safe and then I can be happy. And not to say that, you know, relationships and health and money can't give you happiness or bring happiness to your life. But when you rely on those rules and you need those things in order to be happy, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be really disappointed because it just doesn't work. So if you recognize that in your life, you have rules around exercise, rules around food, even your body, like body checking. If I can wear this size clothes, then I'm safe and then I'll be happy. If I don't weigh over or below this amount on this scale, then I'll be safe and okay. And then I can be happy. Or if I look in the mirror and check my body and I can see that I don't have this fat or I have these muscles, then I'll be safe and I'll be okay and I can be happy. It's like we have so many things that we're holding on to make us happy. So I'm going to give you the antidote to that, because you might be in a place where you're frustrated. Like a good sign that you're in this place and it's not working for you is frustration, self-blame, maybe some guilt, a sense of like, oh, I just want it to be different. Why isn't it different? Or fear, maybe heightened anxiety, like, I know I can't control this. Or I have to, like, I'm sick. How am I going to run my 30 minutes tomorrow? Or I'm so hungry. How am I going to stay under the calories that I've allotted for myself? So if you're feeling frustration or anxiety or fear or even sadness, maybe beating yourself up and like, why can't I do this? There's something wrong with me. Those are good signs that your rules aren't working for you. So if you approach this in an open way, this could be the best thing to ever happen to you. And I mean that it could be the best thing to ever happen to you, because when we're at the end of our rope, so to speak, and what has been working isn't working anymore, wow, do you know what that means? It means you're at like a threshold, like a cross point where the old path isn't working and you know it and you're ready to admit it. But you know what? There's a completely more new, more beautiful, vibrant path available to you that you can walk into. So the end of something means the beginning of something that's even better for you. So as difficult as it feels right now, if you're in this place, oh, I'm so excited for you because it gets better from here. And I want to share some ways that it gets better. So, first of all, I'm going to give you some antidotes. And this is something that I often do, and I don't realize I'm doing it while it's happening until it's in hindsight. But the first thing you can do and say to yourself is, I'm willing to let go. And notice how you feel when you say that. Think about a rule that you have for yourself, whether it's around your body or exercise or food. And just practicing, I'm willing to let go of this blah, blah, blah rule. And you can even imagine it in your head or say it out loud or just get the feeling, the gist of it. I'm willing to let go of this. And if that feels too challenging and like unrealistic, say, I'm willing to let go. And that's a great place to start. There's something in you that's saying, I want to keep this, but it's no longer working and it's no longer helping. And I acknowledge that. And I'm willing to let go, because surrender is the beginning of that new path for you. It's like crossing that door. If you keep holding on to your rules, you can keep holding on to your rules. But spoiler alert, you might end up in the same place again. If you're sick of being frustrated, if you're sick of being afraid, a good way to move forward is to surrender and just say, I'm willing to let go of this idea. I'm willing to let go of this rule. Even I'm willing to let go of this person, or I'm willing to let go of this holding I have onto this thing that I think I need to make me happy. So if that's all you get from this and you just let yourself surrender, you're already in a much better place than when you started listening to this podcast. But if you'd like to go a little further, I have some more antidotes for you. So, an antidote to that anxiety and that fear that comes around rules is presence. And this is really what I do in my work in the 4-H method. It's all about making your body your home, your health, your hero journey. And a big part of that is just noticing what is happening now, because our brains have all these stories around what happens and what should happen based on what we do. Like if I follow this rule to do this specific exercise every day, I should lose weight or I should be toned. But presence invites us to notice what is actually happening. We could even do it right now. Just notice what is actually happening in your body right now. How does your energy feel? How does your mood feel? What are some things that you see around you that you notice? Maybe sounds, maybe sights. The more we can see what is actually happening, the more we can grow in our health and in ourselves. Because oftentimes we'll realize this rule isn't helping me anymore. This rule is actually not working. But if we're so stuck on that rule for safety, we're actually becoming more unsafe by holding on to it. And in the 4-H method, with exercise, we practice presence. With food, we practice presence. With our bodies, we practice presence. So if you would like to do more of this and have like strategies and tools and helpful frameworks to practice more of presence, to let go of those rules and to see what actually is happening, I invite you to join the 4-H method. So along with presence, surrender is an antidote, presence is an antidote. And then once we become present, we can actually see and accept what is, or I'll just call it reality. Seeing reality as it is. So let me give you an example. When I was doing my 3 miles of running every single day, I was not being present. I was just following this rule. I made this rule for myself. I need to run 3 miles. If I do 3 miles, that means I've done enough and I'm okay. I'm safe and I'll be happy. But if when I finally got so tired of it, I had so many injuries, it wasn't working for me anymore. I was at that door, that threshold. I was willing to let go of it. Finally, the hard way, I could see what was actually happening. Like, this is not okay. I have injuries in my ankle, in my knees. My body is actually really tired a lot, and this isn't helping me. And that allowed me to make better choices. So, an antidote to anxiety, to this fear, this desire to control is really, it's as simple as seeing. You don't have to do anything, it's just noticing what is reality. And to take it even a step further, like Katie Byron says in Doing the Work, loving reality, accepting it and loving it, because reality will free you. Not fighting against what actually is happening will free you. And that's another thing that we practice in the 4-H method with food and exercise in your body. And then the next thing that is an antidote to this are questions. And really, the function of questions is giving our brain other options. And I want to share with you just 2 frameworks that have been helpful for me. So let's recap a little bit because this is the last antidote that I'm going to be sharing with you. Maybe I'll give you a bonus one. But we've talked about how anxiety is a fear of the unknown, and a lot of the times is shaped by our past experiences of painful things happening to us when we didn't expect them. So we don't want them to happen again, and we create rules. And we do this a lot. And you might not even realize how many rules you have around all different areas: money, relationships, work. But we're specifically talking about health and fitness. So rules around exercise, rules around food, rules around how your body should be. When we realize over time that those rules don't always work, and even though we feel like we have control, they're actually controlling us. And we can't actually control everything that happens to us. We can't control life. And that's a good thing, because if you're at that place where you realize this isn't working anymore, and this doesn't work at all, it's not working, you are on the precipice of a whole new, more liberating way of being. Okay, so we're crossing that threshold. And then we talked about the antidotes to that, those anxiety-driven rules. Surrender, being willing to let go of it, first of all. Second of all, presence, just being in the moment right now. Third, seeing, noticing, accepting reality as it is. And then fourth, questioning, giving your brain other options. So here are two ways that you can do that. You're caught up now. Two ways we can do that, or some frameworks that have been helpful. And I'm not going to go into all of them. You can do more research. Maybe I'll do a podcast episode on these. One of them is the CTFAR. So it was created by a coach. I can't recall her name. And I did a relationship course based on this framework. So you take the circumstances, neutral circumstances, and then you look at, so that's C, and then T, your thoughts around those circumstances. Let's say I injured my ankle during a run. That's a circumstance, and you have your thought. Let's say in this thought, you're blaming yourself, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I hate myself for doing that, or that is, I shouldn't have gotten injured. Feeling from that thought is, I feel blame, I feel guilty, I feel frustrated, I feel angry at myself, right? And then what actions do you take from those feelings? I don't let myself eat, let's say that. And then the results, what happens is like I'm underfueled and I still have this injury. So it helped put light on how you can change your thoughts about neutral circumstances to create different feelings, different actions, and different results. And it helps you to see how much power you have over your response to circumstances. Another thing that is helpful, and then the cool thing about that framework is like you can ask lots of questions within those steps around different options you can take around, hey, what is my brain feeding me right now? What other options are available? If I could see this a different way, what would it look like? And that's so empowering. So you're giving your brain other options, because our brains will just go to the default way of thinking because it's familiar, it's easy, those circuits are well worn. But giving our brain other circuits to go down makes us realize how much freedom we have to choose. Another thing that's helpful is you can read Katie Byron's book, Loving What Is, and she has the 4 questions. You have a thought, you frame a thought like, I shouldn't, and we'll take this example, I shouldn't have sprained my ankle on my run. Like that shouldn't have happened. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I don't like it. So the 4 questions you can apply to that is it true? And in a way, I shouldn't have, well, it happened. So it is true. It happened. The second one, if you still say yes, like, yes, it is true. I shouldn't have sprained my ankle because I know better, because this has happened so many times before. I know better than this. The second question is, can you know 100% without doubt that it's true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? And if you put those requirements onto it, you might realize like, no, it's not absolutely true. It happened and something happened to make it happen. So it's obviously true. And then the third question you ask is, how do I react when I think this thought? And so you realize, oh, I feel frustrated. I feel defeated. I feel like a bad person. And then the fourth question, and there's lots of variations of these questions, is who would I be without this thought? Or how would I react if I couldn't think this thought? Whoa. Imagine a world where you couldn't think, I shouldn't have sprained my ankle. And then your brain, again, opens to other options that are available to you, other different realities that you can opt into. So that's a really practical way of giving an antidote to anxiety and these rules that we have for ourselves. And then I'm going to add a bonus. So we have surrender, presence, seeing reality, questioning, giving our brain other options. And then I'm just going to add a 5th one: compassion, love, 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 love for yourself. And this is the ingredient that makes everything make sense. You might be in your brain now thinking, okay, I have to be present. I have to surrender. I have to do this. And you're making rules for yourself right now as you're listening. But in the end, you could think of like these 4 steps as like pillars. And then love is the thing that like comes into the room, like imagining opening a door and like the smell of homemade bread or okay, well, no. I like homemade bread, but you know what I like more is you could walk into a home and you open the door and you smell chocolate chip cookies baking and maybe like some coffee brewing, and those smells just hit you. Well, love is kind of like that. You can't necessarily see it or like grab it, but it fills the entire room, and it's what makes it come alive. It's what makes it come alive. Compare walking into a room with those scents. Maybe you can come up with the ones that you really, really like versus walking into a room that's just stale and blank and empty. Imagine, feel the difference between that. Well, love is what makes all of this make sense. And love is what gives purpose to all of this. You are deserving of love. So let's just take a moment as we finish this episode just to like acknowledge that you've been in scary places. Your brain is doing its job. You've had to make rules, or you've made rules in your life because you were scared and you wanted control and certainty, which is completely normal and completely human. But you realize it's not working for you and it's just not helping you anymore. And that's okay. And you're willing to experience something better because you know it has to be out there and you deserve that. And let's just give yourself compassion for exactly where you are right now and love yourself exactly as you are in this moment. Even that, and even that, and even that, and even though this, and even though that, giving yourself love. Just like smelling a room filled with the scents of chocolate chip cookies and brewing coffee. And then maybe some vanilla ice cream. And then maybe there's like a cinnamon candles in one of the rooms going on. That smells so good. I hope this was helpful for you and that you really take this to heart, that it made some things click for you. And as always, if you want to put this into practice and you want structure and support and clarity and a kind presence, not just yours, but a coach and a community of kind presence, join the 4-H method. Whenever you pay, you start at the soonest Monday. So whenever you're listening to this, you can start on Monday. And just making that step for yourself, that surrender of, I'm willing to let go of this. I'm willing to find a better way. You're welcome.